Nice. So what what I've learned from reading about motivation models. So I found out that actually that's a good idea to learn something new while you're working on a certain task, and not just reading random articles. And this way allows me to work on the certain object, on the certain task, and get new knowledge about it and apply it right here. This what you see right now. It's our feature that we recently added to the game, and thanks to Victoria for the amazing card. That's how it looks like. I can present it in a beautiful way. And while I'm working on it, I'm trying to understand how to make this feature works better, despite the fact that actually almost every feature in our game works like this. So what you can see here is objective, is typical goal, progress bar, and reward in the end. So what components includes this feature? So I found out three models that helped me to work on it, and I will tell you about it today. First of all, the fog behavior model, basically how it works. It contains three elements: player's individual motivation, ability, and trigger that presented to the individual. All of them together affect to the behavior of the individual. So basically, this model created to change the behavior, or at least understand how to achieve the behavior we want from the individual. I will tell a bit more about the components itself. So it starts from motivation. It is obviously goal or interest of the individual. So some things that he's looking for, or some things that he would like to avoid. For example, I don't know, fears or probably entertainment. And we once we understand this motivation, this root of the interest, we could um, uh, we could put it to our model and make sure that we answer this motivation. Also, everything that is exciting and looks new increase the motivation. And the more we increase the motivation, the more and ability, the more chances the individual will press our trigger. I will tell about it later. Next one is ability. Obviously, the ability is like a cost of an action. It could be not just money cost, but could be cost of efforts or cost of mental efforts, or literally money or social acceptance, many of them. And the more we have, the more motivated our individual, the more ability he has, the more chance is to interact with the trigger. The ability, as I said, it could be also a practice. One more thing is a practice. So the more experienced our customer or our player, the ability is grows. So once he know how to do something, once he have a habit to do certain action, the ability increases, and he more likely to interact with the trigger. So the trigger basically it's something that stands out, that's visible and promise solving user or game player problem. Something that we promote and promise that solves his needs, that covers his demands. All the things that needs from trigger is to be visible, is to be not noticeable, and that's it. So once player is able to do the trigger, for example, the cost is affordable, like an example, and he's motivated to do this, like he need an application to start running or something like that. Then he interacts with the trigger. Triggers could be anything like a button, feedback form, call number, phone number that user need to call. And yeah, this is this model pretty clearly pretty clearly say how to where to see if our users or players don't do certain action. We need to check motivation or ability. So in our case, in case of the feature, we motivate player with a reward. Ability obviously depends on the level of difficulty. So first, it's you even can't receive it for free, the reward for free, because you already completed it. Not for free, you already completed it, but you didn't mention to do this. But that's how you interact with it. And later, once you start to chase the goal, you already you're already motivated, and the ability changes depends on the level of difficulty. So basically, trigger in this situation is our widget that we first player don't know, but then we sort of sell it to the player, and player start to interact with it. Any questions about this particular model? Cool. Let's continue then. So next I will talk about two core loops model. So previously, as you can see, there was one direction model where we first met our customer or player, and then we trying to present him our solution in the way which will be interesting and affordable for him. So once he interacts with it, then he goes. In this case, there is a different type of motivation models, and there are core loops. And basically, core loops are oriented to make the player more engaged and make a habitual behavior, something that usual for a player, and something that he doing automatically. First of them is a hook model. It's really popular for web services and digital services, mostly because it was created for them. And this model is a continue of the previous Fogg model. The previous model was created by Brian Fogg, and this one, the hook model, is created by his student, but Nir Eyal. And it literally continues, explains what's happened next. So as you can see, there is our trigger. And before the loop, it's external trigger, because we tell our individual that there is such service exists, and it can solve your problem. So we can remind about it. Our individual don't know about it yet. So first, he sees the promotion email or advertisement in the web and interact with it. So he triggered. Then there is action step, and this action step, it's something that we ask the individual to do to be closer to his goal. So as we described before, his goal basically his interest is something fundamental like entertainment or avoiding pain and solving some problem. So we ask him to do some action that after that will be rewarded later. There are a few ways how can we affect to this action of our customer, and you probably see in our CRMs that they are time limited, or they are much cheaper than our catalog, our shop, and all these methods. Yes, all these methods presented here. It could be also a framing effect where we take one quality of the object and project it to the entire product. Like if it's good quality, if it's expensive, then it's good quality. And there are other methods as well. By the way, this this hook model is something that makes you create a desire, so you can remember it and go to this back to this loop again once you have a desire to solve your problem. The next step is variable reward, and term variable reward came from another discipline that called behavior psychology. And the studies that lies on the basement of the behavioral psychology says that variable reward is much more effective than usual reward, than regular reward, because it's more stable in where the reward is over after action. So let's imagine you do some action and have the same result. First is fun, for example, like spending money on Uber Eats. We didn't have this before, and once it's available for us, we had a good emotion. But after that, it became normal. So once it won't work, we lose this connection between pleasure from Uber Eats, and ordering the food. We lose it immediately. But what if the Uber Eats will deliver? Um, but what if the reward will be not stable, but variable, the same as in slot machines? So in slot machines, there is a chance that you will receive the same reward, and chance that you won't receive it. And that makes interesting thing with our expectations. Our expectation grow, and even if we don't receive our reward, receive something that we expect, we continue trying. However, with a stable normal reward, we immediately lose our habit. So in terms of digital services, the variable reward, some things that they can't control, and because of the nature of the services. For example, if you upload photo to Instagram, you never know how many likes you will receive, and that's something that makes you big expectations and make big emotion for you. In case of games, obviously, yes, the slot machines is a good example. They work the same way. So that's why variable reward is used here in this model. First of all, because of the type of the service, they can control it, but also it's more addictive, or it's more emotional, and makes bigger expectations. There are a few types of the reward, and one of them is a social reward. For example, social appreciation. In our case, it could be leaderboards where the leaderboards is a rewards of self. It's where you interested to gain. It's when you win somebody in the competition, and that makes you happy. And rewards of the hunt, where you gain some resource. In case of the digital services, it's information or some interesting picture. In case of our game, it's coins. The next step is investment, and investment makes this model stand out from others, because that's how the product that solves the individual problem, it's become profitable and can grow. So investment could be literally monetization, like we ask the individual to pay for our service, or it could be um, their efforts. For example, they make posts, they create content that the other people, other visitors watch, and that's how the service works and keep growing and keep improving. In our case, we trying to ask our players to sell to our players additional coins, additional resources, and we have a data science department that gain insights from our players, and we can improve our services. Yeah. So later, the final step is a trigger, and once the individual know how good the service works, once he received first likes under their post, they know that to solve the problem of, for example, loneliness or social interaction, they need to use this service. So now they have a habit, and the trigger become internal. Yeah, and this is a loop. Any questions about this loop? Thank you. All right. And the final one is more game-oriented loop, motivational experience model. So if we know about core loop, the basic mechanics that drives the game, and this model exactly is oriented more to meta games or to gamification. For example, in your digital service, you're trying to encourage players using gamification, achievements or progress, never mind. And in terms of casino, everybody have slot machines, and they need to find a way how to make them unique and like promise new features and offer new features and something unique. That's in this case, this loop will help you. Basically, this is the reason. This could be the reason why players back to the game because all the core loops are similar. This become almost the only thing that can stand out. But you can change. You can create an interesting core loop as well. I want to touch business goals and user needs in this case and jump straight away to the player journey. So because this model is created to be a gear in some big machine, this is the player journey is something that we need to remember. So basically, there is a main journey and main loop of the player. He has a goal besides our motivation loop, and he is on the way to this goal, and on the way to this goal we show him this additional loop, and that's why it's here, because we need to remember that we are in a context and we need to remember and work with this context. So it contains 4 necessary steps, and all these 4 steps creates challenge. Challenge is something specific in this case and very important, because challenge something that is controversial and has two opposite measures. From one point of view, uh, player want to have some not hard, but I can say challengeable, right? Challengeable task, objective that is he don't know how to achieve. But from another point of view, he would like to be able to achieve it. So you all hear about the flow. So actually, the flow is similar to challenge. It's a corridor between two sides. It is too easy or it is too hard. And this is not a step in the loop. It's a product of the loop, product that loops create. So to make this challenge interesting for the player, there is a common method. First of all, it looks like a stairs. First of all, player have ability, have certain level of productivity. For example, player can beat monsters uh, with some amount of effort. But then game designed it the such way which reduce this productivity, and player can't beat new monsters with the same productivity. What's important in this case? So player feels obviously feels challenge because it's not as easy as it was before. That's fun, but now it's very important to show to a player a way how to gain back this productivity, how to become this same productive and skillful as he was before. And this is important to show clear exit from this situation, because if player won't find this exit, he will abandon the game, and we don't want that. So what we are doing, we show how to improve uh, his productivity, and basically it could be anything: upgrade or change in strategy. For example, in our case, if you out of coins but you need to progress the objective, the mission, you can change the strategy by lowering the bet, and this will make you more chances um, to progress in the mission. But this is something that related to action phase. So mostly the important note here that it's controversial, challenge is controversial, and we need to let player know how to maintain his productivity. And I will go quickly through the four previous steps. Motivation is the same. There is nothing to it. Basically, we call players, we split players by them who return to the game and the one who abandoned the game. We call them churn players. So the next step is goal or call to action. That's something that helps me with with our missions, with our features that I'm working on. There is this model suggests to use SMART is abbreviation criteria for goals, and many of them, almost all of them, are applicable. For example, goals should be specific. We let player know exactly what he needs to do. Measurable, we tell him how much he should have a win, for example, or how much icons he need to find. It's not assignable in our case, and it should be relevant to the player's challenge, to the player's ability level. That's why we're talking about challenge, and time bounded if necessary. The next step of this loop is action. Basically, the action that we ask player to do to progress and to follow his goal. The one important thing about action that if game is too simple, for example, it's has less choice, or there is no much autonomy for the player. For some players, for hardcore player, it could look boring. And to make the game more interesting for players, besides the challenge, but actually it's part of the challenge, you could give them more autonomy, so give them options, provide them different way of solving the problem. We have in our games a bit of autonomy. For example, you could change mission you play, or you change your bed. You have different features, and you can choose which one you continue. So there is some depthness in our game, and yeah, it makes the game more interesting. The last step is feedback, and feedback basically it's anything in the game that says about changes in the system. It could be reward as much obvious feedback. It could be notification about class changes. But what more important about the feedback that it helps us, it helps to a player to understand how the game works. Because without feedback, we make some certain actions, and we don't know. Without feedback, it's not clear how it's end up. Let me show you examples. So I found a good term of perception line. So initially, player has a mental model, something, some image of the system of the game in his head, and he make an action. Then some mechanic happens under the inside of the game. The player don't know it, player don't know all the rules, and then player sees feedback. That's how, and that feedback then affect the mental model. So this is important part of the loop. But what happens sometimes, player has some mental model of the game, he makes action go to the rules, and then nothing happens. Nothing happens means the game works, but something that player expect to see didn't happen. For example, we click the button, but animation works, but nothing happens, and we don't know what's going on. Because there is no feedback, probably the system works, but we don't know about it. And another case is where player didn't make any actions from his point of view, but he received feedback. So probably in our game, if player forget about timer, in a case of our feature, player forget about timer and then feature disappears, or he stayed inside of the window that feature provides, feature contents, and this window disappears, it closed. So what's happened? Player don't know about it because the initiation of these changes in the system was not player, but was the system rules itself. And it's important to don't forget to let player know about it. That's it by this model. Any questions? If there is no questions, then that's it. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone from Lightning Link team who support me, and thanks Victoria to the amazing card. All the details, if you would like to find more, there is a link in the end of the presentation. Check it. There is my conspect structure at conspect. Yeah, you will see details and more information about it. It's already shared in the London artist, and once I close the sharing screen sharing, I will post link to the chat. You're welcome.